Hello, my name is Hannah Reeder, and today we are going to be talking about practitioner burnout. So, I'm going to start. Practitioner burnout is a major issue now in education and particularly special education. It's something that's been um, studied somewhat beforehand, and now it's all over the news since the pandemic. So let's get started. This is the structure of our presentation today, so you have an idea of what we're going to cover. First, number one, we're going to be talking about practitioner burnout. Why is it a problem? How does it affect the profession? Number two, we are going to be talking about causes of practitioner burnout, the main causes of practitioner burnout, particularly in the field of special education, and then more specifically in early childhood special education, where we could find good research about that. And then we're going to talk about some systematic approaches to increasing teacher retention, because that's our goal. Um, we don't want our teachers burning out. We want them engaged and giving their best each day. And some of those things could be caseload caps, using time studies, increasing instructional resource availability, expanding prep time, designated structure or time for teaming and collaboration, and supportive coaching from administration. So this has been all over the news lately. So we're really studying this at the same time. It's starting to really hit that this is a problem beyond um, our schools, but you're going to see it in the mainstream media a lot. These are just some things from a recent article in the Star Tribune, some quotes I saw. The first one is, there's a lot of trauma in teaching. It's rewarding, but it takes an emotional toll. I was already dealing with that, and the pandemic just broke me. Another quote I found in a newspaper article is 1 in 4 American teachers reported considering leaving their job by the end of last academic year in a survey. Here is a quote from a union leader. Teachers across the state are feeling burned out and expressing concern over their own mental health while at the same time working to prioritize student well-being. And then Education Minnesota president said the amount of stress, anxiety, and mental health issues we're hearing about is unlike any other year, and we're only 2 months in. So this was in October of this year. So definitely don't have to look far to see that this issue is prominent in our lives right now and very relevant. So let's talk about it. So, what is practitioner burnout in special education? Nearly 1/3 of all teachers leave the special ed field after just 3 years. Teacher attrition in the United States is about twice as high as in other high achieving countries such as Finland, Singapore, Canada. So, just looking at this high attrition rate, and then the fact that some countries are doing better and they have different situations, but it does raise a red flag to me and to a lot of people thinking we could probably do better, that there are things we can do that Canada is able to do to decrease teacher attrition and decrease burnout. So there's teacher shortages. The field of special education suffers from a lack of unfilled position due to these teacher shortages. The U.S. Department of Ed in 2017 reported that 46 states were drastically understaffed for SPED positions, and that was before the pandemic. We also know from research that the turnover is highest in vulnerable communities. Schools with higher levels of poverty and students of color are more significantly impacted by teacher turnover and are often left with more novice teachers. And when we're looking at these staffing shortages and the attrition in more vulnerable communities, what it means is that the students that need the most expert teachers are often not only receiving special ed services from teachers that have the least amount of experience, but often even unlicensed teachers working on a variance. And then the other thing is overall work performance decreases when practitioners burn out. And so they might be there, they might keep coming to work. It might not be in a case of attrition, but when teachers are experiencing burnout, their instruction and interactions with students all lose out and are less quality. So, causes of practitioner burnout, I read a lot of articles, and these were pretty high up. And also, as a special education teacher, these are the things I also hear. So, high caseloads. Right now, I am over my caseload cap and nothing's going to happen about it. I have 20 students I'm supposed to meet a great level of needs for. I've had 20 before, but it's hard. And we're supposed to be at 19 as the max in elementary school, but really, if it was down to maybe like 14 or 16, 16 would be great. There's just so much more I can do. Challenging student behaviors. Lack of admin support was cited often. When you're dealing with challenging student behaviors, if you feel like your admin's supporting you and you can work collaboratively, you're less likely to burn out. Excessive paperwork and due process demands, limited prep time, and then unsuccessful collaboration experiences all contribute to teacher burnout. So, one thing to consider with a special education teacher and an early childhood special education teachers is that there can be a lot of role conflict. I read some articles where, like, the researchers were just trying to get the special ed teachers to spend more time on instruction because instruction increases student performance. And they were even having a hard time getting them to do that because the role of special education teachers and early childhood teachers has so many pieces, so many balls to keep up in the air. It's not just being an instructional provider. So, because of all these different roles, a special education teacher can feel pulled in many different directions and experience more feelings of being overwhelmed within the time constraints of a workday. So, some of the roles of a special education teacher and early childhood special education teachers could be a co-teacher and co-planner, then just being a teacher themselves, an assessor, doing lots of evaluations, a parental educator, behavior management, service coordinator. Due process can take up a great deal of time, providing direct instruction, putting supports in place for inclusion, teaching adaptive skills, making sure accommodations are in place, being an advocate, a guide, lesson planning, and doing social emotional learning. It's a lot to keep track of. So, when you start to see that compassion fatigue, that burnout on educators, these are some of the things you might see. Depression, guilt, anxiety, indifference. So, someone who really cared about teaching and helping these students becoming less engaged in those important tasks, the important task of helping young children. Difficulty concentrating, like hypervigilance, which is exhausting. Anger. Oh, I put hypervigilance twice. Sorry. And then, like a loss of boundaries, maybe working when you're supposed to be at dinner, when they're supposed to be at dinner, enjoying other things. Okay, I just wanted to put in here that systematic problems require systematic solutions. We know this in education, that if like 20% or more of a class is experiencing a problem with something, that's not a special ed solution, that's a tier one problem that needs to be fixed at the tier one gen ed level. So, why do we constantly have to go to trainings where teachers are being told, hey, you're all anxious and burnout is a problem. Now go do yoga and be mindful and take a moment of yourself. The problem is not the teacher if it's a systematic problem. The problem is the system and it has to change. Like, could you imagine telling a student with anxiety to just go fix yourself? Practitioner burnout in special education is not simply an individual problem, but a systematic problem in the area of special education that can have real negative impact on the quality of intervention services children and their families are able to receive. Here's a quote. Overwhelming workloads may reduce the energy of new teachers, reduce engagement and responsibilities, and leave them burnt out and less committed to the profession. A system-wide problem deserves a solution that works to alleviate the underlying causes of the problem. If school district administrators value student achievement and retaining competent teachers, they need to take steps to reduce the overwhelming workload contributing to practitioner burnout. Okay? Telling educators to practice mindfulness and yoga to increase their tolerance for chronic stress caused by systems that are broken and unsupportive of their professional work is a band-aid on a gushing wound. Real problems deserve actual solutions. I cannot stress that enough. Having worked at some schools where the amazing teaching staff were like rats on a sinking ship, and seeing them leave so quickly. I am at a school that has had relatively low turnover, but just last year, tons of our teachers retired. Um, and, we had lots of teachers at retirement age because it was a school where people liked to be, because of really great management. But, with COVID, it was quite shocking to see like a great portion of teaching staff retire in just the past year. Why do we need to actually work to solve the problem of practitioner burnout in special education? I mean, we need to bring up equity. Statistics show that special education and early childhood special ed teachers have the highest rates of leaving the profession among interventionists. Among interventionists that serve populations that are more racially, linguistic, social, economically diverse. So this leaves the population of children with the greatest needs being served by interventionists who have the lowest experiential knowledge and expertise. And I just cannot say enough for experience and what that can mean for students. Because if you have intervention staff that are constantly catching up and learning, and once they've reached that level, they're leaving, you really are not bringing in and training the kind of experts that you want teaching in this field, because you're constantly retraining and recatching up. So why do we need to actually work to solve the problem of practitioner burnout in special education? It's pretty simple. It's harmful to the potential progress of special ed students. So special educators who are not stressed are more likely to engage in effective classroom practices, experience greater job satisfaction, and improve their instructional capacity and positively impact student achievement. The results of a study indicate that most of the special education teachers surveyed value their positions, 94%, have positive relationships with their colleagues, 89%, and are committed to their field. Many of them indicated that they carry their school problems home with them, 63%. Their work makes them frustrated, 57%. They feel tired, 78%. And the amount of work they have interferes with how they perform their job, 61%. So we've got special education teachers saying they like their job, they like their colleagues, and they love working in special ed, but that they're stressed out, frustrated, tired, and they have too much work to actually do their job well. Their work was related to a great deal of stress for them. In addition, most of the special educationers surveyed used adaptive coping strategies to deal with their stress on a day-to-day basis. So, and these teachers are also already using coping strategies like mindfulness, things that they teach, breathing, making time for themselves, to deal with stress, and yet they are still stressed, frustrated, tired, and not able to do their job because of the amount of work they have. So let's talk about ways we can manage this burnout and attrition rates. So one thing is workload management, and that can be caseload caps or workload caps. A caseload refers to the number of different students that the practitioner is providing service to and in charge of due to process management, okay? 72% of special education teachers reported large caseloads negatively impacted their ability to meet student needs. Larger caseloads lead to larger group sizes. We all know larger group sizes often lead to less effective instruction. So in the study, larger group sizes have an inverse correlation with student academic achievement. They diminish student outcomes on IEP goals. Early childhood special ed teachers' job burnout and psychological stress may be related to the number of children with social emotional needs in the self-contained early childhood special ed and inclusive classrooms. Many practitioners list large caseloads as a factor of potential stress and reduced job satisfaction. 72% of special education teachers report large caseloads negatively impact their ability to meet student needs. Okay, if you're going to work and killing yourself every day, you kind of want to be doing it to meet student needs. And if something's getting in the way of you meeting student needs, it's more likely to lead to compassion, fatigue, and burnout. And larger caseloads are perceived to diminish student outcomes on those IEPs. Another thing that does help is actually systematically looking at how much time there is in a workday and how much time does it take to do each job. So one way to do workload management is time studies. So Birth to 3 did this in my district. I mean, Birth through 2, but Birth to 3. And they've come up with a workload management system, and based on how much time all these little tasks add up to. And the teachers I student taught with this summer generally expressed a lot of satisfaction with their workload, and they said they were able to maintain a manageable work-life balance because of it. This is something as part of a workload committee in St. Paul with special ed admin and the union. We wanted to explore, but we're discouraged by admin for exploring for other areas of special ed. We were kept being told that Birth to 3 is very unique and different, which it is. But I don't know. It would be cool to see how things actually would come out in a workload time study. So providing instructional supports is another way to support professionalism and teacher work. So increasing resources to reduce some of those job demands that are burning staff out. So, research has indicated that teachers' job related stress resulting from ongoing and sustained exposure to extensive job demands is related to job burnout among early childhood special education teachers. So, one way to reduce the workload is by making more instructional resources available to staff. Instructional prep time can be reduced, leaving more time for things like actual instruction. Like, for example, when you have to write a social story, that takes a lot of time. And we have a lot of teachers writing social stories, putting together different materials. And if there's ways to pool those resources or purchase more instructional options or books that are would be supportive of bibliotherapy and other pieces, that can be things that early childhood special education teachers can grab and use and not have to create themselves. Another thing is communication and support from supervisors. People want clear roles in their job and they want to know that they're going to be supportive, that they can ask questions, um, and so and that they can also go to their admin to problem solve when they're feeling stuck. So being able to have that kind of supportive relationship with admin is key in supporting early childhood special education teachers. When I talked to the director of special ed um, in my district about this project, and she is the former early childhood special education director. She said the Rush Sheldon approach was really key in her view for reducing practitioner burnout in early childhood special education. So, just about that, this is what we've been learning in our classes. The primary coach approach to teaming assigns one member of a multidisciplinary team as a primary coach, where he or she receives coaching from other team members and uses coaching with parents and other primary caregivers to support and strengthen their confidence and competence in promoting child learning and development. So, why does this help? It increases collaboration because there's time scheduled each week and more if needed to team and talk to and consult with other practitioners and itinerant staff. And then it reduces the demand of bringing like 5 people on each visit and that time it takes for everyone to get to the visit and things like that. And then it also creates like a more personal relationship based interactions, and it's just been really positive experience for most of the early childhood special ed staff who are doing home visits using the Rush Sheldon approach. Another piece that can be very helpful is expanding prep time. Systematic approaches to increasing teacher retention includes that prep time. I mentioned that I was on a workload committee this past year, and we actually contacted a lot of districts to find out what they were doing with workloads in their district for special education. And a lot of districts we contacted had a prep for instruction scheduled in the day and a prep for due process and collaboration scheduled in the day. So that was like 2 pieces for prep because they had come to the realization that it's just there's so many roles a special education teacher must play, and if they don't get adequate time to do those things, they're not going to be doing a good job at either of them. Okay. Next thing is structured time for co-planning and collaboration, the ability to work with colleagues, time to contribute to current models of innovation and practice and education, and opportunities to engage with families are best practice activities that are likely to facilitate positive change for students and foster job satisfaction. Special education teachers need time for co-planning and collaboration, but like this year, um, they didn't. They made sure all the general education teachers at my school got time, and district wide got time extra 2 times a week to do PLCs and collaborate and um, engage in this teaming, and they didn't do that for special education teachers. So it's it's something that needs to be worked on, because if we're saying it's important for teachers to be able to co-plan and collaborate, then when? When will it be? It's not up to the special education teachers to figure out how to add that into an already overfull schedule. Something has to be done at an administrative level. And then prep time. In a study that compared special education teachers who plan to stay in teaching to those who plan to leave, found that those who plan to stay had higher job satisfaction and adequate time and energy to complete paperwork. Okay, special education teachers need built-in time in their day for both instructional prep and due process duties. Both represent a significant workload, and having to choose between one or the other means teachers must choose between working beyond a 40-hour work week, providing effective instruction, or meeting the legal requirements of a job. And no one wants to be in a situation where they have to make that choice. So, in summary, a full time job should be limited to 40 hours. I found in a lot of articles I read that that's not the average work week for a special education teacher. Um, this wasn't, the yoga lady was not blocking this text. Uh, in the working mode. Sorry about that. Being able to maintain a healthy work-life balance reduces burnout, and since practitioners burnout is a system-wide problem that reduces outcomes for children, special ed administration needs to prioritize putting structures in place to address these issues. And I think actually they need to start to consider that this is one of the biggest issues that is affecting their students right now, and start putting the time and energy into that, um, if they value the education of these students with disabilities and the progress that they need to make. I got a bunch of resources, some really good articles in there. Check them out. Thank you.